They were tortured, assaulted, killed, their bodies found 4 days later. 6 young gang members, all sentenced to death, 3 executed, the rest still in prison now.
These girls will never be forgotten. Jennifer, Elizabeth, we miss you.
Family and friends gather on a somber afternoon to remember 2 teenagers whose tragic deaths shattered so many lives. A painful lesson for the community and both victims' parents. Adolf Pena says he now only has bittersweet memories of his daughter.
5 years later, I heard just as bad as I did the day she died.
What's up, Dark Secrets family? Before we dive into today's story, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. We release new true crime content every day. Also, if you're joining us today, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. Folks, it was one of those hot summer nights in Houston, Texas that just sticks to your skin. The date was June 24th, 1993. 2 teenage girls, Jennifer Ertman and Elizabeth Pena, were walking home after spending time at a friend's house. Now, these girls were trying to make it home before their curfew, so they made what seemed like a simple decision. They decided to take a shortcut through a nearby park called Jester Park. But see, they never made it home that night. What happened to them in that park was so terrible, so absolutely cruel, that it shocked the whole country. It destroyed 2 families forever. It also changed laws in the state of Texas. This isn't just another sad story, no. This is a true story of pain, courage, and a fight for justice that'll stay with you long after this video ends. This is the story of Jennifer and Elizabeth and the night that changed everything. Let me tell you about Jennifer Ertman first. She was just 14 years old. But this girl was already more mature than some grown folks I know. Jennifer was the kind of daughter every parent dreams of having, kind, respectful, and she always followed the rules. She did well in school, listened to her parents, and was known for being polite to everyone she met. Jennifer had this loving heart and cared deeply about her family. Her dad, Randy Ertman, loved her more than life itself and was always proud of the person she was becoming. She was helpful at home, always tried to do the right thing, and had this way about her that just made people feel good. Now, Elizabeth Pena, she was 16 years old, and let me tell you, this girl was pure sunshine. She was cheerful and lively, the type of person who could make anyone smile just by walking in the room. Her family said she was funny, joyful, and full of that kind of energy that's just contagious. She liked to laugh and loved spending time with her little sister. Elizabeth had big dreams and goals, folks. She hoped to do something important with her life. She worked hard in school and was genuinely excited about her future. Just like Jennifer, she had a loving home and a family that cared for her deeply. These 2 girls were good friends. They lived in the same city, went to the same high school, and had built this beautiful friendship based on trust. They hung out often, shared lots of laughs, and just enjoyed being teenagers together. On June 24th, 1993, the girls went to a small party at a friend's house. Nothing crazy, just a casual get-together with a few other teenagers. They spent time talking, laughing, and enjoying what should have been a perfect summer evening. But you know how time flies when you're having fun? And when they looked at the clock, they realized it was getting late. They knew they had to be home by curfew. These weren't rebellious kids. They didn't want to upset their parents or get grounded, so they quickly said their goodbyes and left the party. Instead of taking the long, usual way home, they decided to save some time by walking through Jester Park. It was dark, but they had walked that path before. They thought they would be safe and get home faster, but what they didn't know, what they couldn't have known, was that danger was waiting for them in the shadows. That one small choice to take a shortcut would change their lives forever and lead them into something no one could have imagined, something tragic, something evil. While Jennifer and Elizabeth were making their way through Jester Park that night, something very dangerous was happening nearby. Deep inside the trees, 6 boys were hiding in the darkness. These weren't normal kids, no, they were part of a street gang called the Black and White Gang. Gangs like this often do terrible things, and this gang was no different. Earlier that night, the gang had held what they called a gang initiation. This is when someone new joins the gang and they're asked to do something violent or dangerous to prove they belong. It's not just play, it's real, and it can be very scary and very wrong. The members of this gang were all teenagers, but they were already involved in serious crime. The leader was Peter Cantu, who was 18 years old. The other gang members were Jose Medellin, also 18, Derek O'Brien, 17, Efrain Perez, 17, Raul Villarreal, 17, and Venancio Medellin, who was just 14 years old. Venancio was the youngest and also the little brother of Jose. That night, the boys were drinking alcohol, laughing loudly, and acting completely out of control. They had no care for others. They weren't thinking about right or wrong. They were in this wild mood and full of anger. Some of them may have wanted to show off their power. Others may have just wanted to hurt someone. Together, they were a dangerous group. As the gang waited in the woods, they saw Jennifer and Elizabeth walking nearby. The girls didn't know the boys were there. They were just trying to get home before curfew. But the gang noticed them and made a terrible choice. Instead of walking away or leaving the girls alone, the gang decided to go after them. They didn't know Jennifer or Elizabeth. The girls had done absolutely nothing wrong. But still, the gang picked them as their next target. Maybe it was to impress each other. Maybe it was to feel strong. Whatever the reason, it was a choice filled with pure cruelty. This one moment, the gang seeing the girls, was the start of something very dark, a night that would end in absolute horror. Jennifer and Elizabeth were walking along the trail in the dark park. They had no idea that 6 boys were watching them from the trees. The gang was hiding in the shadows, waiting and watching like predators. The girls were just trying to get home before curfew. They weren't doing anything wrong. But as they passed by, the gang made their move. The boys suddenly jumped out from the darkness and grabbed the girls. Jennifer and Elizabeth were shocked and terrified. They didn't know who these boys were or why they were attacking them. They tried to run, they tried to fight back, but the boys were stronger, and there were too many of them. The gang dragged the girls deeper into the woods where no one could see or hear them. What happened next was something no human being should ever have to go through. It was cruel, it was evil. For nearly an hour, the gang members took turns hurting Jennifer and Elizabeth in the most horrible ways imaginable. They were violent, they beat the girls, they laughed while doing it like it was some kind of sick game. But it wasn't a game, it was torture, it was real. The girls cried, they begged the boys to stop, they asked for help, but the gang showed no kindness whatsoever. They didn't care at all about the pain they were causing. The gang had already done something unforgivable, but they didn't stop there. After the long attack, the boys began to worry that someone might find out what they had done, so they decided to end the girls' lives to keep their secret hidden. They used shoelaces and a belt to strangle Jennifer and Elizabeth. The girls could no longer cry, no longer breathe. When it was over, the gang moved the bodies to a more hidden spot in the woods. They left them there, lying alone in the dark. Then the boys walked away like nothing had happened. They went home, they laughed, they continued their lives. But Jennifer and Elizabeth were gone. They were 2 innocent girls who never had a chance. Their lives were stolen in the worst way by people who chose to be monsters. It was a night that Houston and the world would never forget. That night, when Jennifer didn't come home, her father, Randy Ertman, felt something deep inside him. It wasn't just worry, it was fear. He later said that he knew in his heart something bad had happened. Jennifer was a good girl. She always followed the rules. She would never stay out late without calling. So when midnight passed and there was still no sign of her, Randy knew something was terribly wrong. Over at Elizabeth Pena's house, her family was also becoming very worried. Elizabeth had not returned either. Her mother and father tried calling people. They hoped she might be at a friend's house or that maybe she lost track of time. But as more hours went by, the fear grew stronger. The girls weren't answering phone calls. No one had heard from them. Their parents knew something was very wrong. Both families jumped into action. They didn't wait for the police to take the lead. They started calling every friend they could think of. They knocked on neighbors' doors. They asked if anyone had seen the girls walking home. They even began printing flyers with the girls' photos and handing them out across the neighborhood. The families didn't sleep. They stayed up all night. Every hour that passed made their hearts hurt more. When the police were called, they began a missing persons report, but at first there were no clues, no phone calls, no items left behind, and no one who had seen the girls after the party. Still, the officers took the case seriously. The story began to spread. The news shared the girls' pictures. People from the neighborhood and nearby areas began helping too. Some searched the parks, others passed out flyers at stores and gas stations. Everyone wanted to find Jennifer and Elizabeth, but no matter how hard they looked, no one could find them. The families waited, hoping for a phone call, a sign, or anything to bring them back, but there was nothing. Days went by, and the sadness grew deeper. Friends, neighbors, and strangers joined the search, yet no one knew the awful truth. The girls weren't lost, they weren't hiding. They were already gone, hidden deep in the woods where no one had thought to look. The truth was out there, but it hadn't been found yet. Several days after Jennifer and Elizabeth went missing, the investigation took an unexpected turn. Out of all the people in Houston, the person who broke the silence was one of the killers himself. His name was Jose Medellin, one of the older gang members, but the way the truth came out was absolutely chilling. Jose spoke to his younger brother and began telling him about what he and the other gang members had done that night in the park. He didn't tell the story with regret or shame. He didn't sound sorry. Instead, he bragged about it as if it was something to be proud of. He described what happened in awful detail, almost like it was some kind of sick joke. His younger brother was shocked. He listened, but he could hardly believe what he was hearing. These weren't the words of someone who had made a mistake. These were the words of someone who didn't care about the pain he had caused. The brother felt scared and uneasy. He knew that what Jose had done was deeply wrong. He also knew he couldn't keep this secret to himself. After thinking about it, the younger brother decided to do the right thing. He went to the police. This moment changed everything. It was the break investigators had been waiting for. The police listened carefully to the brother's statement. They wrote down every detail and began asking more questions. Very soon, their focus turned to TC Jester Park. Officers went out to the park and began searching the wooded areas. In a hidden spot, deep among the trees, they found the truth. Jennifer and Elizabeth's bodies were there. They had been lying in the same place for days. The scene was heartbreaking and horrific. The girls had been badly hurt, and their bodies showed the cruelty of what had happened. Because of the damage and the time that had passed, the police couldn't identify them by their faces. Instead, they confirmed who they were by the jewelry they were still wearing, Jennifer's and Elizabeth's necklaces and bracelets. When the news reached the public, it spread quickly across Houston. People were stunned, angry, and heartbroken. The worst fears of the families and the community had come true. The truth was even worse than anyone had imagined. After the police found the bodies of Jennifer and Elizabeth, the truth started coming out fast. The information given by Jose Medellin's younger brother helped officers connect the pieces of the case. Once they had enough proof, they acted quickly. All 6 boys were arrested. Their names were already known: Peter Cantu, Jose Medellin, Derek O'Brien, Efran Perez, Raul Villarreal, and Venancio Medellin. The boys were picked up by police, taken into custody, and put in jail. As investigators dug deeper, they quickly learned that Peter Cantu was the leader of the group. He had played a big role in what happened that night in the woods. Police also confirmed that Jose Medellin had been the first one to talk about the crime, but not because he felt guilty. He had bragged about it like it was something to be proud of. That made things even more disturbing. Each of the 6 boys was questioned and charged for the terrible things they did to Jennifer and Elizabeth. It didn't matter that some of them were still teenagers. The crime was so violent and so heartless that the court system decided to try 5 of them as adults. Only Venancio Medellin, who was 14, was treated as a minor. People all over Houston and even across the country were watching this case closely. Everyone wanted justice. The families of Jennifer and Elizabeth were hurting. They wanted answers. They wanted the people who caused this pain to face punishment. The courts now had a big responsibility. They had to make sure justice was served and that the law was followed carefully. Each boy had his own trial. The judges and juries looked at the facts and listened to the witnesses. The crime was so brutal and the evidence so clear that the decisions were very strong. Peter Cantu, the gang leader, was given the death penalty. That means the court decided he would one day be executed for what he had done. He was held in prison for many years, and in 2010 he was executed by the state of Texas. Jose Medellin, whose words had helped lead police to the truth, was also sentenced to death. Even though he had helped in a small way by talking, it did not make up for what he had done. But his case became famous not just in the United States, but around the world. That's because Jose Medellin was born in Mexico, not in the US. After he was arrested, he said the police had broken international law. He claimed that they should have told him he had the right to talk to the Mexican consulate. This is something that is normally done when a person from another country gets arrested in the United States. Lawyers got involved. The case was taken all the way to the International Court of Justice. Even President George W. Bush got involved. He asked the state of Texas to wait before going forward with the execution. But the Texas government refused. They said the crime was too evil and they would not stop the punishment. Jose Medellin was executed in 2008. The other gang members also faced serious punishment. Derek O'Brien was sentenced to death and was executed in 2006. Efran Perez and Raul Villarreal were both 17 years old at the time of the crime. They were originally given the death penalty too, but in later years the US Supreme Court ruled that it is illegal to execute people who were under 18 when the crime happened. Their sentences were changed to life in prison. The youngest gang member, Venancio Medellin, was only 14. Because of his age, he was not tried as an adult. He was sent to juvenile detention, which is a special jail for children and teenagers. After spending years there, he was eventually released. Each of the boys faced different results, but all of them were held responsible. In the end, the court did its job. The families were still brokenhearted, but justice had finally been served. This case changed everything in Texas. It showed people how dangerous gang violence could be. It made lawmakers think about how to protect children better. It made parents more careful about where their kids went at night. But most importantly, it made sure that Jester Ertman and Elizabeth Pena were never forgotten. The story of these two girls touched people all across America. It showed how quickly a normal night could turn into a nightmare. It showed how evil some people could be, but it also showed how strong families could be when fighting for justice. Randy Ertman, Jennifer's father, became a voice for victims' families. He worked to make sure that cases like this were handled properly. He spoke to lawmakers. He talked to other families who had lost loved ones to violence. He made sure that Jennifer's name was remembered for the right reasons. Elizabeth's family did the same thing. They refused to let their daughter's death be meaningless. They worked to educate people about the dangers of gang violence. They supported other families going through similar tragedies. The case also led to changes in how the justice system worked. Laws were passed to make sure that victims' families had more rights in court. Rules were made to help police investigate crimes like this more quickly. In schools across Texas, Jennifer and Elizabeth's story was told to warn students about the dangers of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Teachers used their story to talk about making good choices and staying safe. But beyond all the legal changes and the safety lessons, this case reminded everyone of something very important. Behind every crime statistic, there's a real person. Jennifer and Elizabeth weren't just numbers in a police report. They were daughters, sisters, friends, and students with hopes and dreams. Jennifer was going to grow up to be someone special. She was going to make her father proud in ways he could only imagine. She was going to help people, maybe have a family of her own, maybe change the world in small but important ways. Elizabeth was going to chase those big dreams she had. She was going to use that joyful energy to make other people happy. She was going to be the kind of person who lights up every room she enters. All of that was taken away in one night by 6 boys who chose violence over humanity. The gang members thought they were tough. They thought hurting innocent people would make them powerful, but all they did was destroy lives, not just Jennifer's and Elizabeth's, but their own families' lives too. They destroyed their own futures. They proved that violence doesn't make you strong, it makes you weak. Today, when people in Houston drive past TC Jester Park, many of them think about Jennifer and Elizabeth. The park is still there, but it's different now. It's a reminder of what happened, but also a reminder of how important it is to protect each other. The families of Jennifer and Elizabeth still miss them every day, every birthday that passes, every holiday, every graduation they'll never attend. It all hurts. But they found a way to honor their daughter's memory by making sure their story helps other people. Other families have been saved because Jennifer and Elizabeth's story taught them to be more careful. Other young people have made better choices because they learned about what happened that night. In a way, Jennifer and Elizabeth are still helping people, even though they're gone. Their story reminds us that evil is real, but so is justice. It reminds us that some people will choose to hurt others, but there are more people who will choose to help. It reminds us that even in the darkest moments, there are people willing to stand up and do the right thing, like Jose Medellin's brother, who chose to tell the truth even when it was hard. The case of Jester Ertman and Elizabeth Pena will never be forgotten in Texas. It's written in the law books, it's remembered in the courtrooms, it's taught in the classrooms, but most importantly, it's carried in the hearts of everyone who believes that justice matters. These 2 girls deserved so much more than what happened to them. They deserved to grow up, to chase their dreams, to fall in love, to have families, to grow old surrounded by people who loved them. Instead, their lives were cut short by senseless violence. But their legacy lives on. Their story continues to protect other people. Their memory continues to inspire people to fight for justice. And that's something those 6 gang members could never take away. When we remember Jester Ertman and Elizabeth Pena, we're not just remembering 2 victims of a terrible crime, we're remembering 2 bright lights that were extinguished too soon, but whose glow still helps guide others towards safety and justice. Their names are written in the stars now, but they're also written in the laws that protect other children, in the hearts of families who've found strength in their story, and in the minds of young people who've learned to make better choices because of what happened to them. Jennifer and Elizabeth didn't get to live the lives they deserved, but their story has saved countless other lives. And in a world that can sometimes seem dark and cruel, that's a kind of victory that even death can't defeat. Folks, that's the heartbreaking but important story of Jennifer Ertman and Elizabeth Pena, two girls whose lives were cut short, but whose legacy continues to make a difference. If you know someone who's involved in gang activity, or if you see signs of violence in your community, please speak up. Sometimes one voice can save a life. If this story moved you, please take a moment to hit that like button and share this video. Jennifer and Elizabeth's story deserves to be told, and their memory deserves to be honored. Make sure you're subscribed to Dark Secrets Released for more true crime content, and drop a comment letting us know your thoughts on this case. Remember, behind every story we tell is a real person whose life mattered. Jennifer Ertman and Elizabeth Pena were more than victims. They were daughters, friends, and young women with bright futures ahead of them. Let's honor their memory by never forgetting their story and by working to make sure something like this never happens again. Until next time, stay safe out there, keep your loved ones close, and keep seeking the truth.